Sounds like it's playing slow motion tonight. Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks College Sports Huddle. We'll talk a little bit of football, but I'm sure tonight is going to be pretty much all NCAA basketball. We got some topics to talk about here in a second. Quick shout out tonight to all of you watching on TGI Sports Talk on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You'll see this show repeated on Roku, at Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel on Saturday morning. Some of the information might be dated by then, but works really good for football. That is great for basketball, but it is what it is. We'll be talking a lot of football as we go forward too. On Northeast Streaming Sports tonight, we're on Roku. I'm sorry, not on Roku. We're on Facebook and YouTube, and Let's Talk Sports YouTube feed. Lots of great content, guys, on Northeast Streaming Sports on Let's Talk Sports, lots of great stuff. DDH, thumbs up to you. And a quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media, especially the sports corner that he does with Smoking Jim Frazier every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern, excuse me. Sorry about that, Eastern on WBVP, 1230 AM, 99.3 FM. And I'll be on with Ralph Ralph and Jim Frazier next Tuesday at 5 p.m., I believe. So, oh, guys, tonight we'll get into the field. We'll look at I'll give you my predictions. We'll look at the schedule. I'll give you some sleepers, some guys I expect to get knocked out early. We'll talk about the controversy with the teams such as St. John's, Seton Hall, and whatnot that did not get in. Again, I like St. John's. I was rooting for St. John's. But when you're the number 69, and they weren't even in the first four out, there's 68 teams. If you can't get in the top 68 teams, forget about it. We'll talk about some coaching news. Don Munson, a great story. Wagner's a great story, getting into the NCAA tournament, playing in the first four last night, getting into the real tournament, if you will, against UNC now tomorrow. Don Munson out at Long Beach State got fired 5 days before their tournament. I think 5 days, maybe it was 3 days before the tournament started. But they went on a run and won the conference tournament out there. And Long Beach State is in the tournament, the big tournament. So kind of interesting stuff going on. All this, we had a lot of bid stealers last week. Let me just put a banner up here to kind of get things started here. We'll talk about most of that. Anybody get a couple? Daniel Barry, hello. How are you tonight, Daniel? Good to have you with us. Check out Daniel Barry Sports Highlights. Daniel, can put a post up if you like of where and when to catch your content. I'd be glad to put that up. Where was I? A lot of controversy going into going into Selection Sunday and through Selection Sunday, because we had about 5 bid thieves in conference tournaments where they would not have gotten in without winning the automatic bid, and the expected tournament champion had to get in, was going to get an at-large bid. They were not going to be left out. The ACC, North Carolina State beats the Tar Heels in the championship game. There's no way NC State's getting in. They steal a bid away from St. John's or Seton Hall or Providence or Pittsburgh or Oklahoma. Don't go 8-10 in your conference and then come crying. I would like to have seen St. John's in, but again, you didn't make the best 68. I could argue off of last night's game that Virginia doesn't belong. But maybe it's just a byproduct of even 68 teams is too many. Anyway, the bid stealers, Oregon out in the Pac-12, Duquesne in the A-10, because Dayton was getting in no matter what. Actually, Oregon helped the Pac-12 get more seeds than they normally would have. Who else? Somebody else. New Mexico may have stolen a bit, although them getting to the final in Mountain West probably. Probably they were probably going to get a bid anyway with them getting in that large bid, getting in anyway, with just getting to the final. But there's a lot of griping going on. And again, there's 68 spots available, guys. If you can't get into one of those top 68, what are you worrying about? And I get it. I don't want to see teams with bad. I'm okay if you win your conference tournament with a losing record, you get the automatic bid. That's fine. You played your way in a tournament. I don't care that Oklahoma got left out. 8-10 in their conference. Mississippi State should be out. Again, so you can't say, and then I can take two more teams, but Seton Hall, St. John's, again, Providence, Pittsburgh, Oklahoma, Villanova's chances went down the drain. I would say that, and Indiana State. I forgot Indiana State had a great year in the Missouri Valley Conference. Drake beats them in the conference final. They had the best net never to not get in a tournament at 28, I believe. St. John's was 32. That's one of the best nets never to get in the tournament. But I can't get excited for you. Would I like to have seen you in the tournament, Rick Pitino and St. John's? Yes. I would like to have seen Shasheen Holloway and Seton Hall, who had a great season. Faded a little bit down the stretch. 13-7 in a really good league. If you want to make an argument that you got to take more than 3 Big East teams when you're taking 6 Mountain West teams, I meant to pull up the conference. Hang on one second. NCAA bids by conference. And I've been talking up the Mountain West. Excuse me. I've been talking up the Mountain West all year long. How good and how deep it is. But are they? Were they 3 teams better than the Big East? The Big East overall has a better net rating as a league than the Mountain West, than the ACC, than the SEC, who also I said might be the best team in the country. So it's funny. I'm probably it sucks because I'm probably on I'm probably on both sides of this argument, and I shouldn't be. The Big 12, a lot of people were talking about 9 bids for them. They got 8. The SEC got 8. Big 10 gets 6. I was looking for something a little more comprehensive here, but let's see if this tells me. See, breaking down each conference. 5 from the ACC. Some surprises, right? Again, so Indiana State has a great year, loses their conference, and again, maybe conference championship tournament should go away, but there's too much money involved. Or if the ACC, and by the way, there's talk about the NCAA tournament expanding, which I would not want to see them do. But if they do, I don't want to see more lower level Big 10 teams or Big 12 teams. The Indiana States of the world should get in the tournament. But St. John's and Seton Hall, you don't have a gripe in my mind. I will give you Virginia. And I will give you Mississippi State because you got to kick teams out. And you're not going to kick out, in my mind, if you want this tournament to continue to have the charm and the appeal that it has, especially the first 2 rounds, or even the first week. First 2 rounds. I should say that is the first week of the tournament. You've got to have these mid majors and even lower conferences involved. You want Cinderella. That's what drives this tournament the first weekend. After that, we want to see the business of winning a tournament, an NCAA championship, get started. Good evening, Dave Guyette. Good to have you with us. I see Scott Colby here with us as well. Scott's been following. I do. Let me look at the. Let me give you a couple. I'll pull up my bracket here. And Scott, you can feel free to kind of throw in your 2 cents if you like. Here's my bracket. Big upsets. I like Duquesne over BYU in the first round in the East. I like Drake, not a big upset, but I like Drake over Washington State. Let's go out west. Who did I pick here? Anybody? I almost took Grand Canyon over St. Mary's, almost. New Mexico over Clemson. Nevada over Dayton. It's a 10-7, not a big upset. Colorado State over Texas, again a 10-7, not a huge big deal. Oregon, I like over South Carolina. I think, and again, I know Neil Bush isn't going to like hearing that, but I do like South Carolina's had a great year. I think Dane Altman's done a good job with this Oregon team late in the season and a great run through the Pac-12 in their last tournament. I think they might have enough juice in more game. So I guess the biggest one, I got NC State over Texas Tech. So I got 2 11s winning. I got James Madison over Wisconsin. There's a 12 for you. 112 always seems to win. My 12 this year is going to be James Madison. So I guess the biggest upsets I have are a 12 and 2 11s. James Madison, NC State, and who did I say? Duquesne, whose coach is retiring right after this tournament as well, by the way. Chris from Canada here, loving the March Madness clothing. It's black on black. I don't know if you're talking about me or them, but I got to tell you, these first 4 games, and I got it when the 16 games are better than the 10 games. Oh my God, that Virginia game was unwatchable. I was playing a game on my phone, watching the thing, and I swear to God, for an hour, it was 14 points. Good to have you with us, Chris. Rick Sherlock, hello. Thoughts on listen, Marcelino, how do you say his name? Never can say his name right. Coach Marcelino. I'm probably saying it wrong. Look, he's really been at Siena. Let me pull up his record. This is a horrible year for Siena. He's probably got to go. Their best player has already hit the transfer portal. Hang on. Let me pull that up, Rick. Siena basketball. So let me pull him up. Let's see if I can find I want to find his record. What I want to find, but probably not going to find it that quick, am I? All right, I'm not going to find it that quick. He's had a couple good years, had some really good players. Pickett, who had been starring, I believe, at Penn State after he transferred out of Siena, was the conference rookie of the year 2 years ago. He couldn't keep good players here. The transfer portals really hurt him and hurt teams like Siena. And I don't know. I mean, Siena's a stepping stone job at best, right? You see guys come in like Mike Dean, like Paul Hewitt, like Fran McCafferty, who are going to use that. And Mike Dean was here for a long time with a lot of success, and he used it as a stepping stone to get the Marquette job. Paul Hewitt had a pretty good and by the way, Mike Dean got Siena to the NCAA tournament for the first time ever, and also their first win ever. When they beat, they were 14 and they beat a 3, I believe, in Stanford. And then nearly beat Minnesota in the next round, but they ran out of gas. Paul Hewitt came in here, and again, they've had some stinkers in between, right? Louis Orr was here 1 year, went to Seton Hall right after that. Hewitt got them to an NCAA tournament and nearly stole a win and gets the job at Georgia Tech. Fran McCafferty had some really great success here. Went to 2 NCAA tournaments, I believe, turned it into a great job at Iowa. So it's a stepping stone job. And if you don't start to get it done, he's been there, I think, 4 years. Oh, let me see. Let me see if I can do this a different way. I want to see his overall record. Marcelino. That's not how you say it. I wish I knew how to say his name. It's going to be interesting to see where they go for this coach. Again, don't expect a big name to come in here. That doesn't happen. Mitch Bonagero, he took abject failure. Mitch Bonagero was a longtime assistant and coach on a high school level, failed miserably at Siena. And then Coach Marcelino came in here in 2018 after Jimmy Paytos, who came in from Marist, who had great success there and only had middling success. But he goes 4-28 this year. It's going to be very, very hard he did not replace Matos. He replaced Jamie and Christian, who left for George Washington right after 1 year. Again, stepping stone job. So Siena started a national search. Be looking for a hot assistant to really get this job. So what else you got here, Rick? Will Purdue break their prior early exit? I have Purdue getting to, where's my bracket? I have Purdue getting to, let's see. Gotta be number one down here, right? Midwest. Purdue. So they beat the 16 team who's playing right now, by the way. Montana State and Grambling are tied at 29. They'll play the winner of that game. I have them beating them. I have them beating TCU in the second round. And then, believe it or not, I have them losing to Gonzaga. Gonzaga, very underrated. Mark Few, one of the great coaches in this country. And by the way, I talked about Don Munson getting fired at Long Beach State and then getting to the tournament. Don Munson, you may or may not remember. People think about Mark Few putting Gonzaga on the map. It was Don Munson that actually put Gonzaga on the map, got them to an Elite Eight. 20 some years ago, I want to say, or close to it, and then left for Minnesota, and Mark Few was moved up to that job. Did a great job. Mark Few's one of the great coaches in the country. I've got Gonzaga getting to the Final Four right now, unless I change my picks. I've got Gonzaga, Marquette, if Kolek plays, and plays well. But I've got Auburn winning it all. I've got who do I have in the Final Four here? Auburn, North Carolina, Marquette, and Gonzaga. I got Marquette in the final. Again, their star guard's got to play. Scott's got Stanford over Kansas. I like that pick, Scott, especially with the news that McCullough is not going to play for Kansas the entire tournament. He's been out for quite a while, so they've been playing without him. But Kansas has not been the same team without this kid in the lineup. I think Stanford is a really good pick. And what is that, a 12? What are they at? Are they at 12? What are they? Where are they in this bracket? Come on. Show yourself, Kansas. Show yourself. I think Kansas got a 4. Well, there it is. They're 4. So it'll be a 13 over 4. Same as Siena over Stanford that year I'm talking about. Good evening, Danny Fuller, out there in Southern California. Little surprise out of your league, the Pac-12 with Oregon and Dana Altman doing a great job running the table out there, stealing a bit away from somebody here in the East, most likely. So who's in? Washington State. I got Washington State, I think, losing in the first round, unfortunately. I do have Oregon winning their first round game. And again, a lot of times, by the way, if I don't have a team moving past, especially one of the top-rated teams, if I don't have them getting past the second round, that's where I'll pick my upset in the first round because I'm not really losing much, right? Danny's got Purdue in the Final Four. Not much of a scratch player, especially when it comes to Purdue, and they have not been able to produce. Painter's a great coach. Edney's the player of the year, easily, I would say, again, for the second straight year. Just not sure that they've got the guard play to really get themselves over the top. Now, it's possible losing the Big Ten tournament, which I believe they won last year before they went out in the first round last year. Maybe losing in the Big Ten tournament will be a blessing for this team. Maybe little wake-up call. I do not have UConn. I have UConn losing to Auburn in the Elite Eight. Rick, I've got UConn beating Stetson. I've got them beating Northwestern. And I've got Auburn beating them in the Elite Eight, or Sweet 16, excuse me. Auburn's playing great basketball. So UConn, don't get me wrong. But it's so hard. The pressure's going to mount every game for UConn. It is so hard to win back-to-back tournaments. It hasn't been done since 2004 or 5, I want to say, when Florida and Billy Donovan did it. Before that, it was 92-93 or 91-92 with Duke and Coach K. Before that, it was 20 years in UCLA. Almost 20 years. So this doesn't happen all the time. And it's very, very hard to do. And most of the teams that have come back trying to win that second time have gone out fairly early in the tournament. Excuse me. Got a scratchy throat. So, listen, and I take nothing. UConn's a great team. Don't get me wrong. Love them. Love their coach. You might want to stop going after guys in the stands 3 times in the last month. He's gone after guys in the stands at Creighton. He did it. He did it here just last week. I mean, challenging guys to a fight. He's got to stop that. It's all great being tough and acting tough. And I don't know what the altercations were, but just walk by. All you got to do is walk by and go to the locker room. 13-4 is Sanford over, what's here, 4-13? Is that the Sanford? Same thing that Scott just told me, or is that your... I don't think Danny gave me. You guys got upsets? I'd love to hear who you guys like or don't like. Here's where I have my ones going out. I've got UConn going out in the Sweet 16. I've got Houston going out in the Elite Eight to Marquette. Disclaimer. I need Marquette's starting point guard, whose name is escaped, Kolek, to be healthy. Or all bets are off with Marquette. The other, where's my other number one? So I had, I gave you Houston, I gave you UConn, I gave you Purdue, also going out in the Sweet 16. And the other number one, Carolina, I've got losing in the national semifinal, Final Four, to Auburn. Hunter Dickinson and his Jayhawks. No one has come out of KC at 7'2" tall. The Jayhawks are a very popular pick to go down in this first round. So, I mean, and Scott's really good at this, so I will defer to him. They're probably the most likely high seed to go out in the first round. I don't think so. I didn't pick the biggest upset I had was a 12 over a 4. I'm sorry, 12 over a 5. My bad. Can't add. Danny Fuller, thanks for the heads up. Keith is on. Danny, go, and Chris, you go too, because I don't know that I know I invited both of you guys to go to TGI Sports Talk and follow the page. And if you like and follow TGI Sports Talk, you should get the notifications when I go live. If you haven't done that, please do it. I think I friended both of you guys on my personal page, and I do share the upcoming shows to my personal page. I'm not sure that the notifications go out though, so check your notifications and let me know. So, Danny, I'll give you the basic schedule. Tonight is the college football, basketball, baseball. We'll talk some baseball coming up. Probably not tonight, but in the weeks to come. That's at 7:00 Eastern. On Friday mornings, 9 a.m., a little early for you, is Are You Serious? You can catch all these shows later. You just can't comment, as you know. You can comment. I'm not going to be there to answer them. And then we do the MLB update at 3 p.m. Sundays, even a little earlier for you. I'm sorry, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time is the Sunday Stream of Consciousness, which is my favorite show of all. Not that I don't love them all. I feel like I'm missing something. Maybe I'm not. It's 4 shows, right? And then I guest on Mac and Jack on Sunday mornings at 8, Friday mornings at 8:30. At 6:00 on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network, we do some. We have a show with a bunch of the podcasters from the network at 6 p.m. on Northeast Streaming Sports. Another place to go, like and follow, and you'll get notifications of great shows there too. What do you got here, D&E? You've hit follow and still not getting notifications. That's weird. Yeah, I get the notifications when I go live, but I'm here. We'll have to look into that. Anybody else? Chris, are you following the show? And Rick, I know you followed the show for a long time. Do you get the notifications when I go live? Because it could be a setting Danny has. I don't know. Danny, I had the schedule. We're just working on memorizing the schedule. And I know some of it's really early for Danny, so I'm an early bird myself, but not everybody is. What else did we want to look at here? I was looking for, and by the way, Montana State, if you're interested, just took a 9-point lead. I think they went on a 10-1 run there. They're up 42-33. I think it's at the half. And later on, we'll get Colorado and who's the other game tonight? We're going to get Colorado and Boise State. I'm interested in this game. I really am. And I may put a little wager on it. I'm not sure yet. I got to take a quick look. In fact, if you're still here, Scott, I'd like to get your opinion on that game. Spread's -3.5. Total's 143.5. I'm considering a wager on Boise State, actually. What else we got here? CA's with us. Good to have you with us. CA out there in the great Southwest. Who's CJ rooting for here in this tournament? Houston? Texas? Texas Tech? Who else are from that region? Danny, love 5 a.m. I'll be up at 3 a.m. Look at the world champion 24. That's amazing. We'll talk about that on the major league. We're not going to get into that today, but Friday I want to talk about more about these create games and 6 a.m. Eastern time, 3 a.m. for you. So we'll talk about that series on Friday at 3:00. Vegas finished what? Third? Where'd they finish? Let me get to the Mountain West has had a good season. I've talked them up, but for the Mountain West, and again, part of this is because of New Mexico getting the automatic bid, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bids, while the Big East comes away with 3. Well, again, I'm going to say anybody who gets left out, tough beans. If you can't find yourself within the top 68, I don't know how good a job the committee did, though. New Mexico's got to go because they win the conference tournament. And listen, a lot of you conferences have got only yourselves to blame because you made a big deal about the conference tournaments, and I get it. It's a moneymaker. And if you're going to make your automatic qualifier come from that, and listen, I grew up in a time where you won the regular season, you won. ACC was the first conference to have a tournament and have that champion be their automatic qualifier. And that's when you only got one bid. There were no at-large teams. So you put all your eggs in one basket here. Indiana State out because of Drake. But Vegas finishes 12-6 in a pretty good conference. Are you better in the Big East? I'm not so sure. But Vegas had a good comeback year, Chris, and I think they are building some momentum for the future. So glad to see that. 12-6, that's a good league. I mean, my biggest problem is losing teams getting in the tournament. But if you win the automatic bid, I'm okay. Wagner, I'm okay. Mississippi State, I'm not okay. You get that large bid, you're 8-10 in your conference. Why are you in there? Oklahoma, you got no gripes. You went 8-10 in conference. Sorry. And if we expand to 72, 76 teams, I don't want to see, there's a lot of talk, and a lot of it from Staley down there in the SEC, that they want more bids, but they, just like in football, they want to make sure that the power conferences are getting those extra bids. In fact, there's some talk started by these SEC elitists that some of the automatic bids should be taken away from the smaller conferences. And I think that's BS. What gives this tournament its real charm and the interest is those first couple of rounds where anything can happen. And the Sanfords and the Wagners of the world can shock the world. You take away the automatic bids, you're going to lose a good part of your following because they're not hardcore college basketball fans. They've gotten used to those Cinderella stories early in the tournament, especially, and you will kill this tournament if you do that. So expand if you want, but do not take automatic bids away from these other schools. In fact, if you expand, I would suggest you take the regular season winner and the conference tournament winner if they happen to be different teams. Scott, I'm a listener. Send us a pic. I know Scott's still with us or popped off, but he might pop back in. Good evening, Kenny. Have to go get my mind right. For those of you who will follow the show for a long time and follow the adventures of Kenny Gifford, you probably know what he's talking about. Baseball America has Arkansas #1 in baseball. We're going to get in some baseball here in the coming weeks, but with basketball going, I can't. Let me see where they are in the just to give you a little talking point here, CA. I didn't pull any of the rankings up because of here's the NCAA's rankings. This is by this is from the NCAA page itself, I think. They also have Arkansas and LSU #2. Some interesting teams still in there, CA. Coastal Carolina at 16. Nice story there. Dallas Baptist at 19. Campbell at 21. Cool. We're going to have some good stuff to talk about as we get towards the meat of the college baseball season. So tonight's not going to be the night to do that too much. Florida State and Clemson bolting. A lot of talk about on both these. You know that Florida State's already suing the NCAA. Clemson, there's been talk about on and off as well, potentially leaving. For the SEC, it's the Big Ten is interested in both these teams as well. I think Clemson is also. The ACC is now countersuing Clemson over their grants of rights and seeks damages. So I don't know. These lawsuits. So Clemson sued the ACC in Pickens County, South Carolina, challenging the grant of rights and its $140 million withdrawal penalty, joining Florida State. It's very obvious they want out of the ACC because they know what's coming. They both have probably ways. They better be sure they've got an in at the SEC or the Big Ten. Big Ten wants to go south. So I don't think Clemson and North Carolina, by the way, is going to probably be next. I can see all three of those schools finding their way into the Big Ten or the SEC. So there's football for you. There's the NCAA football for you in a nutshell. We're spending the offseason in court. Danny considered himself hardcore, but loved the Cinderella too. I consider myself hardcore and love the Cinderellas. Again, when I'm talking about losing an audience, I'll probably watch the tournament. You'll probably watch the tournament, Danny. But there are a lot of casual fans that tune into this tournament because of the possibility of anything happening on any given night, especially these first two rounds. Locked Up Sports. How are you doing tonight, Locked Up? Expanding, and again, if you've got some, I always encourage the other podcasters or content creators, if you'd like to share when your shows are on and where, I'll be happy to give you guys a little shout out when you show up at my show. So anyway, expanding dilutes the conference tournaments when you already have basically meaningless season. I don't necessarily disagree. I don't want to see them expand. I think 64 was the right number. When you watch these first four games, especially, I mean, how is Virginia? Virginia's got to be the worst team I've ever seen play from a power conference in the NCAA tournament. I mean, it's awful. It was awful last night. Is the regular season meaningless? I don't necessarily think so. I mean, if we think the regular season is meaningless, then ask Seton Hall, ask St. John's, Pittsburgh, and the Ilk if their regular season is meaningless. It still means something because you have to earn your way into the tournament. But that said, I'm not a huge fan of expanding, especially when I know, and I'll call you Locked Up because I don't have a name for you. If you got a name you want me to use, please put it in your comments, and I'll try to be able to remember it. I especially don't want this tournament expanded when I know damn well it's going to get used so that, I can get 10 teams from the Big 10. I'm sorry, the Big 12, 2 more from the Big 10 and 2 more from the SEC. And there's still going to be some of the mid-majors that get screwed because Staley and his group of marauders who think only the power conferences matter in this country, in sports, college sports, want all of those bids. They want to take away automatic bids. Worst thing they could ever do. Lots of comments here. I see Scott back down there. We'll get to him in a second. You can expand to 120 teams, and that's you can't cry foul over. I really look at because here's the thing: I got 4 or 5 teams crying foul. I got to take 4 or 5 teams out. Who are they going to be? I can easily say after watching Virginia, in hindsight, they don't belong. I can say an 8 and 10 in their conference, Mississippi State doesn't belong. But I'm not going to say any of the upset teams like Wagner doesn't belong. They played their way into the tournament. So it gets hard, It's not as easy as saying, these teams got to go. Can't remember to check. He played at LSU. Shaq played at LSU for Dale Brown. I'm not sure LSU ever got out of the first round with Shaq, believe it or not. Because if you remember when Shaq was in Orlando, or I don't remember if he was in Orlando in the pros already, or he was coming out of college. It might have been when he was announcing he was coming out of college early, and he said he'd won everywhere he'd been, basically. So the joke, because he'd not won nowhere, so the joke was kind of, Shaq has won everywhere except junior high, high school, college, and the NBA. Obviously he finally won in the NBA, but he did play at LSU for Dale Brown. Dale Brown, a really underrated college coach, by the way. There you go. Danny's already got the LSU there. Good. LSU. Can't decide how what kind of capitals he wants. We've been talking about this a little bit, as you probably heard, Scott. I'm not a fan of expansion. Again, if you can't get in a field of 68, why do I want you there? And here's the thing, and I'll say this to you, Locked Up Sports. Because of the threat that the Big Ten and the SEC is going to go their own way, and the football teams are going to control what happens next in realignment, maybe even seceding from the NCAA and going their own way and playing their own tournament, that the only way to appease them is to expand. And I say let them go, to be quite frank with you. I've said this on my shows about the football conferences. If you want to go and have a pro conference somewhere, which is basically what you're going to have, amateurism is out the window. And what you want to do to some of the schools that do have at least an illusion of amateurism, we want to kick them out of the tournament. SEC Commissioner Staley wants, some of these teams to lose their automatic bid so his conference can get more bids, or expand a tournament so the SEC and the Big Ten and their ilk can get more. You wanted to expand in these super conferences, and if you're going to hold the NCAA hostage, I say let them go. I know it's easier said than done because a lot of the blue bloods are there. Scott, Boston College Eagles got big time win in the NIT at Providence. Here's the thing, and I'm not shocked. And I guess this is as good a time as any to bring this up. There's a lot of controversy this week too about teams like I believe Oklahoma didn't go, Syracuse didn't go, St. John's didn't go. Seton Hall, I think, didn't go to the NIT. The NIT has really lost its luster. First of all, because the NCAA expanded to 60, from 32 to 48 to 64 to 68. But the teams that don't get there, like Providence, I would have loved to have bet Boston College today if I thought about it, Scott, because Providence doesn't want to be there. This is that's a place where you could really go make some money, because these teams that miss out on NCAA bids, they really don't want to be there. But nice win for Boston College, and we'll give them kudos for that. Bob Walters, good to have you with us, Bob. If you've got some information about if you've got a podcast or content sharing that you do, you can feel free to put it in the comments, and I'll certainly put it up there. Good to have you with us, Bob. Hopefully you'll get out there and like TGI Sports Talk as well. Oh, Scott, what do you got? If they expand to even, 72 is not going to. First of all, again, I will say I don't want expansion because I know what's going to happen. It's going to get done to appease these powers, superpowers, and I don't want that. If they expand, and the NIT already is a second thought tournament. When I was growing up, and the NCAA was 32 teams, 24 when I was probably started following college basketball as a young kid, but 32, I think, once you got to the early 70s. the NIT still had some really good teams, and it was still a fairly prestigious tournament. Years before that, there were teams. Marquette was ranked number 1 in the country one year at Al McGuire in the late 60s and told the NCAA to stick it. They were going to NIT, so it was still a very good tournament. In the 50s, the NIT was bigger than the NCAA tournament. And it was still big in the 70s, 80s, but it started to really lose prestige as I say, we went to 48 to 64 to 68. If they go more, they ever go to 96, which I think is crazy, there won't be an NIT tournament. You already can't get these teams to go because the transfer portal. Why is the transfer portal open the day after Selection Sunday? Why can't it be 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later or a month later? Big East has been pretty successful starting a basketball-only conference. Well, the Big East, while they're not what they were, Bob, if you haven't watched, I'm always giving these ESPN 30 for 30s a plug. If you haven't watched a Requiem for the Big East, watch it. It's about the birth of the real Big East back in 1979-80. And it's a tremendous, tremendous documentary. And they built a TV league. They built a league from scratch out of a bunch of teams, mostly that were independents or played in the old ECAC, if you're old enough to remember and lived in the Northeast. But then when the Big East broke up because of the football schools leaving to go to the ACC and other places, remember, UConn left to go to the American Conference. Who won a national championship there? But they didn't fit there. And they've done a really good job of building this league back up to where they are. Now they've had to kind of go to the Midwest and bring Creighton in. And I mean, Louisville was here for a while before they went to. So again, they'd already, broken the boundaries of the Big East, but boundaries don't matter in conferences anymore. But they've rebuilt a really good basketball-only league again, second time. Because, well, I shouldn't say that. The first time they built the Big East, I do think it was still a basketball-only conference the first time when they started, and then because there weren't a lot of football schools, but the football schools did play. A lot of them didn't play. Obviously, Villanova didn't play in the football league. Seton Hall, those types of schools. UConn at that time didn't play in the football league. But they've done a good job. Go 132 in one more round. But why, though? I mean, again, if you're going to go that far, there's only 300. You might as well go 2 more games and play 264. I don't think we need 132 teams. And as I think it was Bob Walter pointed out, if we took 132 teams, Danny, the teams that finished or came in 133 and 134, 135 would be crying their eyes out. 68's enough. 64 is enough. I think 48 was enough. I like 64. It works for brackets. You still get Cinderella League, automatic qualifiers. Tournament's big enough, agree. Why not every league gets 2 entries? Seems fair. And I don't think you can do that. Although I did propose a minute ago that if they did expand, I would prefer that they let if there was 2 different winners, one for the regular season, one for the tournament, then both those schools would go in from that league. But I guess then you could have teams or leagues manipulating, getting teams in. But Kenny's talking about basically every league. And by the way, unfortunately, and you know the answer to this, Kenny, because this is all about money. They want to take away automatic bids from the smaller leagues now. They're never going to say, all right, only 2 teams from the SEC and 2 teams from the Big 12. But the Missouri Valley and the Western Athletic Conference, they all get, that's not even a conference anymore, but you know what I mean. The Horizon League, whatever's still out there. The Atlantic Sun, Conference USA, they're all going to get 2 teams. So I would say 2 teams if you have 2 different winners in the regular season and the conference. And so the number of at-larges could change every year. That's okay. The teams that are deserving a little bit deeper in the better leagues would still get their teams in. You'd have more griping, but whatever. Moses Malone was the first basketball player to go from high school to the NBA. I'm not sure, CA, if he was the first, actually. Bill Willoughby did it, I think, before him. Let me take a quick look. He is one of the first. He went to the ABA when he started. Maybe he is the first guy. Maybe because time is not to go. Let's see what I can come up with here. You guys put a few more comments up. High school to NBA. My search work at all? Well, I take it back. Bill Willoughby and Daryl Dawkins were the year after Moses Malone. Good job, CA. I should know better than to question you. Sure, there's Maryland. I know Lefty Driesell and Maryland were hot and heavy after Moses Malone. And he may have even committed to go there before he got offered a bunch of money, which he probably never got from the Utah Stars in the ABA. Locked up. No MSG left the NIT hanging by a thread a few years ago. It's a good point. A few years and it's going to fail to exist. I don't doubt that myself. If you remember, we had some other conference or nationwide tournaments even after the NIT. There was one called the CCA. I don't even know, collegiate colleges, whatever. I don't even know what they stood for. But there were some other smaller tournaments as well. But you're really getting to the bottom of the barrel. And then when you have the teams, that just miss out on the NCAA saying, I don't want to go, that's been the lifeblood of the NIT since the 60s and 70s, where the best teams left after the NCAA tournament took theirs. I'm surprised the NIT's hung on this long. They moved to a preseason tournament, if you remember, 2 decades ago at least, maybe longer, to try to make themselves relevant again. And it's a shame because there's a lot of history there. Scott agrees with me, doesn't want expansion either. It's fine the way it is right now, and I think they should go back to 64 and cut down the at-large numbers. Well, you can't really cut down the at-large numbers if you've only got, I don't know what it is, 32 qualifiers. You'd have to cut down back from 64 to really cut down the at-large numbers. Well, you're cutting out a couple if you cut out the first 4 here, right? That would actually cut out what? You got 4 16s, or 4 16s playing. So you cut out 4 at-larges just by going back to 64. I don't want, but I certainly, and I know it's going to happen, Scott, and I don't know whether you agree with me or not, but the way things are going, the SECs and the Staleys of the world are going to get their way, and they're going to get more bids, and they're going to get automatic bids taken away from some of these smaller conferences, which will kill this tournament. May not kill it, but it'll severely wound it. Rick Sherlock and you guys still got a couple for baseball. I did promise to get up to a Hawks game, and I will. Let's see. Locked Up Sports and Bob Walters. Their show's available anywhere you get podcasts, as well as YouTube twice a week. Check out our tournament special tomorrow and www.lockedupsports.net. I'll do that. I try to share some of the podcasts that I like when I can and think about it, just because when I'm not doing mine, I'm trying to relax because I work about 60 hours a week at my real job, and then I do this, and I don't have a lot of time to go do that other stuff anymore. But I like to promote you guys a little bit that are doing the same thing that I am. So feel free to reciprocate or don't, but I like to give a shout, especially to the guys who come and participate during the shows. Scott loved watching the Big East, and it wasn't great. Have you seen Requiem for the Big East, the 30 for 30 on ESPN? It was done quite a while ago, but it was really well done, and it was about the birth of the Big East and the explosion of Eastern basketball because of it. And it was basically the first, made-for-TV league. And man, it was so much fun. The Monday night games always had the best matchups of the week, and had some great stuff going on. In the 80s, when he was growing up, watching Mullen, Ewing, Michael Adams at Mullen from St. John's, obviously Ewing from Georgetown, Michael Adams from BC, Ed Pickney from Villanova. Some great basketball. And there was a coaches league. Some of the best coaches in the history of college basketball coached in this league. Boeheim, Calhoun, Thompson, Carnesecca. Loved 1985 when they had three teams get to the Final Four. St. John's, who had some great battles with Georgetown that year. Georgetown and Villanova all got to the Final Four. 32 probably is enough, Danny. I don't know how many conferences there are now. I think there's, how many are there? Let me count real quick. You guys love to watch me count. Let's see if I can count these quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Well, you got about 30. I probably missed a couple. So there's somewhere between 32 and 34 conferences. So 32 probably won't cover it if you're going to continue to allow automatic bids for every single conference. Now, remember, you go back in the day, one bid. Every conference got one bid. When there was 24, there weren't nearly as many leagues, obviously. Selection show for the road, Frozen Four, 6. Already we're at the Frozen Four. Where are they being played? By the way, I'll bring this up for not just for Kenny, but for some others too. The women's college basketball, a lot of hoopla surrounding there, especially here locally in the Albany area. Because Kenny, I don't know if you've heard this, but South Carolina, I think, is playing. They're going to have the second round games, I believe, here in Albany in the women's tournament, and you got a very good shot of seeing the number one team, South Carolina, undefeated here, and a very good chance of seeing Iowa and Caitlin Clark here as well in the second round, or the round of 32. So it'd be the third round. Next week. So that'll be kind of interesting. A lot of interest in that happening locally. And South Carolina being undefeated is a great story. Caitlin Clark finishing up her career at Iowa is a great story. And for those of you who have not already gotten in, let me remind you, go to Northeast Streaming, or not Northeast Streaming Sports, go to TGI Sports Talks page and get in the NCAA Tournament Challenge, both the men's and the women's brackets, and we'll have some fun for bragging rights there. Danny, Chris, don't think I've seen you in there yet. CA, not sure I saw you in there yet. Scott Colby, not sure I saw you in there yet. CA, Sarah mentioned you. Yeah, just till noon tomorrow to get in. Danny says, if you have a regular season winner go and a tournament winner go, some regular season teams would sit out league tournaments. I don't disagree that, and I think I mentioned a little bit, you could see some shenanigans get played. I mean, you could force them to play, I suppose, mandate that they play. But, you know, there's still money involved, too. The more teams you get in, the more money for the league. So if you're a team that normally would only get one bid, then you'd probably have somebody different win the league, because some of these smaller conferences would certainly want the bigger payday, right? Yeah, so it's probably not a very good solution, but I don't want just to see, you know, the 10th place team and all the power conferences there either. I mean, if you went to 72 this year, then you would have had Seton Hall in for sure. But I probably would have had Oklahoma with an 8-10 record in the Big 12. Probably would have had Pittsburgh. St. John's somehow didn't even get into the first four out. Mine's much clearer. Kenny's coming around, guys. Very happy to hear that. So get over there and get in the men's and women's challenge. They had the CBL now. CBL, yeah, there was something. There was a couple that I think I remember this one. Who's playing in that tournament? Austin P. And NJIT. Best 2 or 3 finals in some dumb toy. What? Best 2 out of 3 in final in some in the tournament. It's gonna be hard. How are you gonna fit it into a week? That would probably be a way to eliminate some of these bid stealers. And again, I want to take nothing away from the Wagners, the Oregons, the NCAA and NC States of the world. Duquesne, great story. Their coaches announced he's retiring after a couple of decades there. I like Duquesne. One of my big picks, first round upsets. Duquesne. Not with the money they could make. Not sure where that comes from. Because of I'm not sure where you're coming from there, Kenny. I don't know which comment that applies to. Chris, has any good links to stay up on or watch college? I think ESPN carries a lot of the games. Let me just see what I can find for you right now, Chris. How to watch. I feel like there's a link similar to the men's link. If you go and Google a men's game, NCAA's got a website where you can watch every game going on at any given time. And I feel like there's one for the NCAA tourney. The things I don't do for you guys. Every game of the women's tournament will be aired. Here's the schedule that will be updated with matchups on ESPN's networks. You might have to get ESPN Plus to get all of them. I do have ESPN Plus myself. But I'm going to put this link in here. Every game will be aired. Yeah. It looks like they're all going to be on one of the ESPN networks, right? So that's where I would start checking, Chris. And if you don't have ESPN Plus, maybe you want to do a free trial these next couple of weeks, and because they have raised the price to about $10.99 a month, which I pay because there's a lot of games I get for football and basketball you can't get elsewhere. Whoops. So check out ESPN, Chris. Let's just admit the powers to be greedy. We know that. That's why they'd like to take the Wagners of the world and not have any NCAA tournament. Where those of us who enjoy the chance that Wagner could shock the world and beat North Carolina. You see, enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, it is great. See, that one I know. I know what he's talking about. Requiem for you guys who haven't watched it and love college basketball, especially going back 40 years, watch Requiem. I can't say that word. Never mind. Check out ESPN's 30 for 30s and look for Big East documentary. 80s Big East had the best coaches top to bottom. Tremendous coaches. And even at Seton Hall, if you remember, those of you who maybe like I have the past 3+ decades have enjoyed listening to Bill Raftery do commentary on college basketball and some pro basketball. When the Big East was formed, Bill Raftery was a coach of the Seton Hall Pirates. Then it was P.J. Carlissimo, another great coach to come out of there, took them to a final. Providence had great coaches, starting with the commissioner, Dave Gavitt, but he never coached in the Big East because he was the first commissioner. But they had Rick Barnes go through there. They had Rick Pitino go through there. We all know about Louis Carnesecca, Boeheim, Jim Calhoun, Raleigh, Massimino. Can't forget Raleigh. Boston College had Dr. Tom Davis and some other really, really good coaches. Gary Williams. Great coaches. Rick Pitino of Providence. There you go. Ralph Williams, how you doing, buddy? Ralph Williams from RW Media, who I mentioned at the top of the show. Check out Ralph's stuff. Just go to Facebook and look for RW Media and like and follow that. You can catch his shows, specifically the Sports Corner, Tuesday nights 4 to 6 on WVBP Radio. I'll be on there next Tuesday at 5. I got to call your producer, Ralph. Ralph, I'm going to tell you right now, we've been talking a lot about the snubs tonight. To me, nobody gets snubbed. If you didn't get in the top 68, you got no gripe. And I like to see St. John's get in. I like Rick Pitino. Seton Hall had a great year. Shasheen Holloway did a great job up until the last couple of weeks. Pittsburgh, I know, with Jeff Capel, had a decent regular season, but I can't find 5 teams to take out. I can take out Mississippi State easily, but I don't want to expand this tournament so everybody gets in. We're also all over Duquesne. I picked Duquesne to win in the first round. Who are they playing? I forget now. Who are they playing? Duquesne is playing BYU. I've got them winning the first round and unfortunately, losing in the second round to Illinois. But Carlos, don't know what you're arguing about. I mentioned on a post that the NCAA junked up the NIT, and now they're going to do it to the national championship. They will if they, look at this tournament, like the rest of college sports, Carlos, is in great jeopardy. Great jeopardy. Because all these guys, the elitists from the SEC and the guys who run the power conferences want the little guy out. They don't want him to play in their backyard. And if you don't give me my way, I'll go play my own tournament, which is what the SEC and the Big Ten are basically telling the NCAA now. We want more teams in, and they're doing it in football too. And the NCAA is pushing back. Well, the college football, because the NCAA doesn't run the football playoff the way they run the NCAA tournament in basketball. That is run by the NCAA. But but they're going to hold them hostage, and now they're pushing back, and God bless them. I'm glad they did. No, you're not getting, if we're going to expand the football tournament, we're going to give you more bids. Play your way in. That's why I say make everybody play their way in. Again, Basement Bob, not my idea, just one that I am in favor of. In football, 16 teams, all the conference champions, just like basketball. Then you can have 5, I guess it would be 6 at-large teams. You'll still get the best teams from those power conferences. We'll get the at-large bursts. Jesus. Kenny knows good basketball. I know good basketball. I don't know if that's a comment or an agreement. Why not restructure the historic NIT and leave the national championship alone? I'm not really sure how you're going to do both things, Carlos. So you're saying don't expand, and so we further wreck the NIT. The NIT is dead already. The NIT is already dead. It just doesn't know it yet. Then the NIT has been dead since they went to 64 teams in the NCAA. Plain and simple. And now teams don't go. You rarely saw teams decline bursts in the past, but now because of the portal, at least that's their excuses. That's Rick Pitino's excuse. And again, I get that a little bit. If you have 3 or 4 kids hit the transfer portal the day after Selection Sunday, how are you going to play? You don't have 80 guys on a roster like football. I also mentioned that they should have the NIT versus the NCAA champion and Maui Invitational first game. That's fine. I mean, nobody's going to care, but fine. That's fine. It's another new season. Half the players won't be there from either team. It won't be, I don't know what relevance it will really have. The NIT should find some way to build up the preseason NIT the way they tried to do in the NIT. The postseason NIT really started to lose its juice. And I thought they did a pretty good job for a while, and maybe they need to figure out a way to make it mean something. I'm not sure how you do that, but NIT's dead. Let's just face it. We can't. We're going to be lucky that we can save the NCAA tournament. In my mind. Carlos is saying you can watch them at NCAA.com. That's where I watch the men. And maybe they've got that's what I was mentioning. Maybe they have a women's. This is for you, Chris, and anybody else that cares about watching the women's game, which I do. I know there's a I know there's a narrative going around that Keith is against women's sports. He's not. In fact, there's a lot of great interest, as I said, a lot of interest in women's college basketball. Just not a lot of other women's sports. Sorry. And there's going to be some great interest here in Albany if next weekend, not this coming weekend, but the following weekend, undefeated South Carolina moves on, and Caitlin Clark and Iowa move on. They'll be playing here in Albany. All during game time. That's we're talking. I know the men have it. I don't know about again, going back to this comment that Carlos put up. NCAA.com does have a feed for every men's game. You can watch every game that's going on at a given time. Like next week, a game starts tomorrow. There'll be 4 games going live by probably 1:00. You can watch any one of them. And I don't know if the women have that or not, but check it out. I know ESPN is carrying every single game at some time or another. So I don't know what that means. John Thompson at Providence, John Thompson played at Providence, coached at Georgetown. Great coach, great teams. Won 1 national championship. Probably should have won more. It is the portal. The coaches said it's the portal. Carlos says it's not the portal. Schools are not getting the same amount of funds, nor do the coaches. The teams get zero money for going to the NIT, Carlos. Not a nickel. And the school has to pay the way. Nor do the coaches get their procession pay. I don't know what that means, procession pay, if the season is extended. They get paid. Schools get paid to go to the NCAA tournament. Many coaches have it in their contracts that they will get a bonus if they make the NCAA tournament. Maybe some of them have it for the NIT. I don't know why you would, because the tournament is nothing. The schools get no money from the NIT. None. ESPN had coverage and did not invest in the NIT. Why would they invest? Nobody's watching. They have coverage too. You could watch every game. There was games on this afternoon at 2:00. Nobody's watching, Carlos. What are they going to invest in? You think they're going to invest in the NIT the way CBS, TNT, TBS, and US? It's not USA either. USA is not involved in the NCAA championship. You've got three of them. True TV is the one who has the rest of the games on. USA is affiliated with NBC. But why would they invest in the NIT when it means nothing? They're not going to invest in it. So I've given you guys some where it's already 8:16. Well, you only got a few minutes left. So I've given you. I watched some NIT games last night. Listen, I will tell you this. I mean, I did watch one part of one game last night, and I guarantee you every NIT, and I know I've been bashing NIT a little bit because it's dead, because it means nothing. The kids want to play, and if, I'm happy if they win. And it's a place for Austin Peay to be able to play. I think that's what Carlos is really trying to say. But I'll say this. Every one of the NIT games was probably better than that Virginia game last night. So the NIT dodged a bullet not having to take Virginia in. And back to your comment about the NIT and St. John's not going. Rick Pitino says they have other they need to get ready for next season because the transfer portal is open. Players are hitting it, so teams have to go and woo kids, and the kids are going to be not playing in the NIT if they hit the transfer portal. So transfer portal does have a lot to do with it. And the fact, yes, you're right, they're not getting any money, not some money or less money, no money. What we got here? Monday started spring break for many schools. Guarantee you these NIT, you know what? You know the NIT, by the way, they used to go when Siena was really good back when Mike Dean had gotten Siena moving in the MAC, and actually went to a few NITs, went to some NCAA tournaments. They were playing home games in the NIT in a 10,000 seat arena because they could fill it. And if they went to the big schools, Georgia Tech, I say Georgia Tech because I know that Siena beat Georgia Tech on their home court because the game couldn't be played in Georgia Tech. And if you watch, and if you'll see some very strange. You go, why is that team going to Austin Peay or whatever? I'm making up. Let me see if I can pull it up. Let's look at some of the teams who are home tonight. Try to make my point. And again, the point is that crap. How come I only got NCAA tournament NIT? Here we go. Well, LSU got a home team. Providence, these are all good teams. UCF gets a home. Well, it isn't really a good example either. Minnesota doesn't get. They got to go to Butler. Yeah, see, these aren't great examples of what I'm trying to say. Maybe it's changed because again, there's a different level of tournament. I'm looking for one. SMU goes to Indiana State. Guarantee it's a smaller venue. UNLV goes to Princeton because there's nobody going to be at the Vegas Arena to watch the game. These games are getting played right now, by the way. And there's some examples where the bigger school has the home team, but there's been a lot of strange, and again, it's not every instance. If they think they'll get a better crowd, they'll send them to the smaller school. Happened with Siena a lot. There you go. I don't know what that is, but I don't know how that's relevant to anything we're talking about. I don't really care about what the NCAA March Madness revenues is in $1 billion. The NIT is a separate entity. That Arctic what? The funds and money both tournaments make. I'm not talking about what the tournaments make. I'm telling you the teams don't get paid to go to the NIT like they get paid. The conferences. So every team that gets in the NCAA tournament, just like who goes to a bowl game in football, gets money. The more teams a conference gets, and the conferences split all that money up. Like I want to say the ACC is splitting $16 million or something. Again, I could be wrong because I saw something quickly when I was looking for something else a little while ago. But the conferences get the money and they divide it amongst all the teams, including the ones that don't go. There is none of that from the NIT. They do not pay out like the NCAA tournament. You get money just for showing up, just like a bowl game. And that money goes into a kitty that is split by every team in your conference. So the more teams you get in, the bigger the kitty. The NIT does not do that. Carlos, I don't think you have filled out a bracket yet either on the women's or the men's tournament. If it's on TV, there's the money going. You're not understanding what I'm saying, Carlos. The tournament's getting money. The NIT gets paid by ESPN, which I think ESPN's got all these NIT games, as you mentioned earlier. The schools are not getting paid by the NIT. There's no money going to the schools. They go for free. They pay their own freight. Stars hosting the Coyotes. NHL rumbling towards the finish line. I got to give you my final four one more time before we break up here for the night. Hang on. By the way, I don't think I want to find more thing. See, I can't get it. I want to find. That's pretty funny. I take that back. Teams get a unit of $5,000 for each round they reach. They might as well get no money. That's as much as zero. So they're paying their expense. That's not even paying their expenses to go and travel to play. So again, there's no money. And nobody actually cares. Some gamblers care. I wouldn't bet an NIT game. I get scared because who wants to be there? Why people opt out? Because coaches don't get contract extensions for NIT invitations. Oh, my God. Oh, jeepers creepers. I'm trying to find some other information. But, I can't believe I've talked this much about the NIT. Anyway, before we go here, let me fill you in again on my picks, which now I've lost. God darn it. Hold on, let me see if I can I get there? I want my tournament. Here's my picks. Upsets, first round. Duquesne. NC State. James Madison. There's your 11s and 12s. 2 11s and a 12. Final Four. Auburn. Auburn beats UConn in the Sweet 16. Beats North Carolina in the Final Four in the semifinals. Auburn. So Auburn, North Carolina on that side of the bracket. On the other side of the bracket, I have Marquette beating. Can't believe who's number one over there. Houston, because I don't have my bracket up. I closed it. And on the other, I've got Gonzaga knocking Purdue out of the tournament and getting to the Final Four in a year nobody expects it. Yeah, Tyler Seguin is finally back from an injury. Anyway, everybody get to. I should pull this up before we go. We got 4 minutes. Hold on. I'm going to try quickly to pull up my. Come on. Here we go. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Here we go. I'm going to put the links up in this chat here. I should have done it earlier when we still had a bunch of people here, but I'll put the links in here for the TGI Sports Talks Women's. I don't want to view my bracket. I want to view my group. Invite more friends. Copy link. Here comes the link for the women. You can still do this once we're done. And let me get to the men. We don't have a lot of guys in here yet, guys. So let's get this opened up. I got to go back. Hold on. Back up. Men. Got to make sure I send you the right thing here. Seven. Is this, yeah, okay. Ah, shit. Boy, I'm having a tough time. I hope you didn't hear me say, oh, crap. All right. This is great TV, right? All right. Copy link. Here comes the men. Anybody not in? Chicken. We did men's and women's at everybody's request. Let's have a good turnout. Let's have some fun. We'll talk about the results on the standings on Sunday and next Wednesday, obviously, and until this tournament is over. Did I miss anybody? Any more comments here since I started putting these up? Because it takes about 6 minutes. I think they're all up there. Anyway, guys, great comments. Great show tonight. Thanks for participating. Go Auburn Tigers. You are this year's national champions. Keith Engle, Sports Talk, College Sports Huddle. Have a great night.